Welcome to Stage Dive, a podcast where we go deep on the art of live performance to help artists perform better on stage. I am your host, Jack Dawkins. I am a rapper, poet, and storyteller out of Boulder, Colorado. I have a few quick announcements for all of you listeners out there. I have new music that is releasing all the time. I have a few shows coming up, and I also have what I call the Contemplation Collective. It is a guided visualization that I host most Fridays, unless I'm traveling or some other things have come up. But it's a really wonderful space that we create. It is intended for anyone who wants to join. It is completely free, and it's really just an opportunity for you to take 15 to 20 minutes, unplug from life for a second, and just get connected to your breathing and to hopefully go on a little bit of a journey that makes you feel calm, peaceful, and centered. If you want to learn about more of any of those things, you can go to www.jackdawkinsraps.com/linktree, LINKTREE. My two guests, plural, this evening are Rayner G and Sandi Stock. They are creative and romantic partners living and working together down in Florida. They are both artists as well as a support system for each other. We dive into what makes their partnership work so well, the artistic paths that brought them together, and what it feels like to be your own hero. I loved getting to witness their dynamic throughout the conversation, and I hope you adore this episode as much as I do. Amazing. Where did Rucker's name come from? Ruckus. Rucker.
Ruckus. Sandi,
Ruckus.
you got this.
Excuse me.
Yeah, this one is a me question. Ruckus is a second iteration of a ruckus that existed years ago.
Okay.
When I was growing up, we found a stray cat and took her in, and then she was suddenly pregnant and had two kittens, and one of them was a gorgeous yellow boy that looks just like that gorgeous yellow boy, and we named him Ruckus. And sadly, he was lost in a fire that took everything. And so it was really, it was really important to me later in my life that if I ever got cats again, that I have Ruckus live on, and as well as his brother. So yeah, that's where Ruckus came from. This is Ruckus 2.
Ruckus 2. I love it. What was Rucker's brother's name?
The original two were Ruckus and Puckish. And
the rhyming game started early. I love it.
Yeah.
That's right. And when I got them, I brought them home, and that was my intention, that they were going to be Ruck and Puck. But I got them home, and Puck was not a Puck. Puck did his own thing, and so Puck got a new name, which was Solo, and so he passed away just a year ago.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're seniors. So
I'm glad Solo got to live a long life. That's amazing.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll get another 10 years out of Ruckus.
Yeah. Ruckus also channels his name, man. You know, he makes a lot of noise.
He makes a ruckus.
Yeah. I'm really curious that notion that you had of I want to reincarnate is a interesting word to choose, but basically I want this name to continue. I want this spirit of this animal to go on. Like, where do you think that came from?
Well, we're getting deep so quick. We're getting deep.
Yeah, we're just going.
I mean, hey, I think we all live through trauma, and it was devastating losing the cats. Items you can replace, but beings, souls, you cannot. Mm-hmm. And so it just happened that I went to the animal shelter and found this gorgeous yellow cat and this gorgeous gray cat that looked exactly like these two cats I had earlier in my life. I also was not planning on getting cats, just found them and said, this is Ruck and Puck all over again, and I'm taking them home. And for me, it was a chance to give them the life they didn't get to have. And that's, I think, for us too, our childhood trauma, right? Like, can you give yourself the life that you didn't have? And so that's what my adult life has been basically about. So that's where that came from.
Amazing. I'm going to put a pin in that and definitely come back to it. So wait, just for timeline, purposes, Rayner, where were you in connection to Sandi when these two cats came home?
Oh man, I mean I met you, Sandi, in college. What, like 10 years ago? Right?
13 years ago this year.
Really?
Circa.
Yeah.
Really? Oh man, I feel old. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do us like that. It's just that it's been that long since I've been in college. All right, then yeah,
I
13
know that
years.
feeling. Yeah.
Tell me about it, man. Yeah. So I mean, you had cats since I met you.
Yeah. So I had gotten them just the year before I met
Yeah.
Rayner.
Wow. Okay.
Yep,
So
and
yeah,
his-
they
and
are
his
senior
dog.
kitties then.
Yeah.
They've been here for a minute. Amazing. And then okay, so you met in college,
Mhm.
and then 13 years happened. So like, did you like, what was the romance like? Was it like immediate soulmates? Was there kind of like an in
Oh
and
no,
out
not at all.
period, or
No.
what did it look like?
So Sandi was dating someone, and I was dating someone too. We were friends. I was I was an upperclassman when I met Sandi. Uh, and
Which is funny because I'm older. It just
yeah,
that's how it works.
yeah,
Funny. Okay.
yeah, it was funny. Well, Sandi, you'd done other stuff before you came to college, and I came straight out
Yeah.
of high school. Yeah, we met at New World School of the Arts. I remember you were working on a project in one of the rooms. I couldn't tell you what project it was, but I remember you had a Nerf gun, and
It was the
and you were like,
freshman.
"Is it Where Am I Now?"
Yeah. The
Yeah.
the final for the fall derby.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, I just remember you jumping around with your Nerf gun and your Nerf balls. And I was all up my ass, right? Like I was like, this lower classman's using the space when us seniors and juniors are supposed to be in here right now. So I gave Sandi a hard time. But it was all love. I was like, "Are you sure you're supposed to be in here?" And Sandi's like, "Yes, I reserved the space." And I was like, "All right, cool. As long as you reserve the space, fine. That's all that matters." And then we became friends. I was friends with her partner as well, who was a lower classman as well. And yeah, we ended up, I graduated. We went our separate ways, so to speak, but we remained connected as friends. We were in a show together not long after that where we played husband and wife. Which is really cool. We were still not romantic. Yeah, we weren't romantically involved then, which
Thanks,
is cool.
Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Theater, for sure, man. And then some more time. And then we were involved in another show together. And Sandi had been reaching out to me for a while about like auditioning for certain things and stuff. And I finally took them up on this one offer to go audition. Like it wasn't like Sandi was putting on the show, but Sandi had connections with them and was already going to be in the show. I was like, I think you'd be really good for it. We did a show for Juggernaut Theater, and it was Miami Motel Stories, Wynwood Stories specifically. And that's when we started dating. I remember, Sandi, tells me about this show and audition, and I go audition, and I remember texting them and being like, "Yo, I fucking slayed, man. I'm going to be in that shit. I promise." And I got in, and then I'm sitting there the first day, and Sandi's not there. Right. And I'm like, fuck, you're supposed to be here, Sandi. Like, my one friend, what the hell? And so, I go around the room, I say hi, I meet everybody. And then like, fucking like 30 seconds right before we start, Sandi comes in and a ball of energy, glowing flowers on their shirt, and I was just like, wow, Sandi's energy's different. And that day I was like, "Hey, you want to hang out? You want to grab a drink? You want to do something?" And we hung out that night, and the rest is history. Yeah, it was really great.
That's amazing.
It's funny to me that Rayner's first memory of me was him yelling at me over the studio that we were rehearsing in. My first memory of Rayner is him freestyling.
It was in the elevator. Really?
Yeah. The first time that I met Rayner was at one of the parties, like, early on in the like right after orientation, one of the parties that, upperclassmen would throw for the freshmen. and being there and being like, yo, this guy is amazing. And like, I was completely, you know, in it with someone else. He wasn't, you know, later on, he started dating one of my other classmates. And so, you know, it was never romantic, but my first introduction to Rayner was him rapping. And there's a few different memories because I already knew who he was by that point. So I have a few different memories of him leading up to that moment, but it always makes me laugh that that would be the first moment of me that he remembers.
I'll never forget it.
It's like such a depiction of his personality and my personality. So it just makes me laugh that that's the first memory.
That's amazing. This question is going to take me a second to get to, but I will get there. So I arrived at performing very late in life. I did a lot of things. I did restaurants, I did fitness, I did a bunch, and now I'm sort of more in this space of being an artist. But for both of you, you found performing early, and I sort of want the origin story, but what I'm more curious about is either back then when you were in college or even now, when you see another artist, when you see another performer, what do you really admire? Because you've been around a ton of them. By definition, you went to school with them. You've been in performances for like decade plus. So when you meet other performers or when you see other performers, what do you really get either inspired or energized or excited by? And I definitely want to hear answers from both of you.
I'll jump in. So especially back when I was, you know, a younger artist and in college and encountered, you know, impressive energies and saw like, you know, what the program was doing and, you know, all these awesome talents. I guess like spiritual sweat, you know what I'm saying? Like, or like energetic sweat. Like they're on there, like going like, you know, not necessarily pushing like to the max, like, or anything, but like just really present and giving themselves over to like, the task, right? Whatever it is, you know, whether it's dance or whether it was theater or whatever it was, you know, music, anything. But like that, like that like space that happens when you get lost in it, you know. And I don't mean like you know, blacking out. I just mean, you know, where it, like the momentum kind of grabs you and you either ride it or you get off, you know. And that's tangible to me. Like you can see that, you can feel that. I mean, I'm not blind and I don't presume to speak on that experience, but I imagine like you feel that no matter what, you know, in a room. And that to me is what like really excites me for performers. Yeah, it's what I admired. I remember, you know, there was a guy named Nick Duckart. He was the first main actor. He was a junior when I saw him when I was a freshman, and I was blown away. He did like a monologue and a song, and I was like, "Holy shit, you can be that good!" And it was, you know, like I don't even know if he like I don't know what monologue he did. I couldn't tell you what it was about. I couldn't tell you what song he was doing, but he was so present and having so much fun. And I wanted to chase that feeling. So yeah, that's my answer.
Amazing.
Yeah. Thanks.
I have two answers.
Allowed.
Okay, good. I had a really like weird life and trajectory, like in my personal life, growing up, all of that. Part of the reason why I didn't actually meet Rayner at college until he was I think a junior and I was a freshman, and I was starting over in college as a freshman at 24. So I was older, you know, in a group with younger folks. And so something that just has always shook me and still does to this day, because even now I still feel behind on my craft sometimes. Like I look at people like Rayner and I'm like, you disgust me. Like you are so talented. You have trained on all of these various things. And like just the fact that you've been able to learn and pick up all of those, like not everyone can get every skill. Not everyone can master every part of the craft. And so when people have mastered something that I like can't fathom as a performer, that blows my mind. Like Rayner and I are both voice actors, but his voice work, specifically his dialect work, as well as the variety and strength of like the different characters that he has within his like vocal, ability, absolutely blow my mind. People who are technically incredible singers. I am a singer and not a technical singer. I am very much a soulful singer. My voice doesn't sound like that perfect, clean technique, and nor do I want it to. But the people who do that blow my mind, because it takes effort, it takes studying, it takes practice, it takes years to develop those skills, and that just amazes me. Like the ability, the dedication, all of those things. Part one. Part two is I have seen some amazing acts of saving the day in theater, particularly, that that I could not really explain to you, like if you were not there in that moment. I have seen actors, singers, and dancers, and honestly, dancers are the ones that it's the hardest for, because you can never break like out of the motion, out of the physical storytelling. The minute that you break out of the physical storytelling, everyone knows. Whereas singers, maybe you can just fake the words for a line or two until you get back into it. Or actors, you can just improvise until your scene partner comes in because they forgot their cue, or whatever it is. Like there are so many ways that we have to sometimes cover or save things. And I've seen people do things in other languages because they forgot the words in English. And so they covered that by doing it in another language and making it authentically work for the piece. Amazing. I saw one singer who was doing an iconic song, and she was sort of leading the musical director around in like this circular pattern of, she couldn't get out and back to the verse because she kept trapping herself in the build from the bridge to the hook. And the music director was just following her and like, oh God, what's gonna happen? And she just stopped. And as this brilliant, Laura Hodos, as this brilliant cabaret singer that she is, she just stopped and said to the audience, I'm just going to start this song over because this song is way too iconic and you all deserve to hear it the way it's supposed to be done. And she stopped and she started over from the beginning, and like an immaculate professional went on to murder that song 5 times better than she had been doing it. And she sounded amazing the first time. The audience was happy to sit there and listen to her do the same words over and over again because she was so amazing and so committed to what she was doing. But that was so gracious, so like present, so like humble and willing to accept like that we as artists aren't perfect and we get things wrong sometimes, but like, to me, that was the absolute epitome of being a good performer and a good professional, and of having grace and humbleness and also killing it. You know what I mean? There was no shame in that. And it was so beautiful. Those moments astound me whenever they happen.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Again, I was not super immersed in theater, but I feel like there was a story that to break the fourth wall was really bad. It was like, ooh, no. Like the stage is the stage, and it's like this perfectly preserved thing, and the actors are in character. Like what I fucking love is when, like, either by breaking out of character or staying in character and pulling the audience in, like that authenticity and suspension of disbelief. Like, ooh, fuck, it can be so good. And I'm sure there are times it's not great. But I so agree with you that for like vulnerability is so beautiful that within the context of art, which is intended to evoke emotion, like vulnerability sits so nicely in that package, right? It's like it's a continuation, it's an extension of the desire to evoke emotion within this audience. And so like anyway, long way of saying what you were saying lands. I get it. It resonates. I like it very
Thanks.
much. Sandi, right now you are helping to manage and direct for Rayner. And I do want to talk about that because I have many curiosities. But before we get into that, as a performer, is that like on the back burner right now? Is that a parallel path you're walking? Like, yeah, I assume so.
Absolutely
So like,
not on the back burner.
yeah.
Definitely something that is a priority to me, something that I cannot live without. And trust me, I have tried, because when I was a younger person, I thought, I'm just going to go make money and forget all this other stuff because it's too hard. And I was the most miserable human. And I promised myself I would never do that to myself again. And so I won't.
Amen.
Yes, amen. Every step that I've taken and everything that I've done, including studying with FLS, has absolutely driven me further into my passion and just made me a better artist all around. So still performing, still, auditioning, still singing, still rapping, still writing songs, still directing, still writing plays and musicals and creating, still producing, still doing everything it is around art, because as I said, I wear many hats. There's no back burner for me. All the burners are on all the time. It's just which one needs my attention at this moment. You know what I mean? What's simmering on its own
Yes.
and just needs an occasional stir, and then what needs to be focused on and seasoned and given love at the moment. And so right now, that's where we are. Is that we are very much, as I see it, we are very much in Rayner's moment. I'm so thrilled and honored to be able to be a support system to him and use all of these other skills that I have garnered to support him. So honestly, it's been amazing to work with my partner every single day. And I mean, what could be better than working for yourself with your best friend and person you love? There's nothing better, literally.
I mean, it can be a fairy tale, right? It's like you can align all the elements and they can be cohesive. And particularly if you have a relationship that has spanned 13 years, like if you have the vocabulary and the dexterity to navigate the ups and downs, because I love you both, but don't fucking tell me you don't have difficult days. Like I wouldn't believe that for a second. But if you have the tools and the love to navigate that and to move through it, like the way you just described the container, yeah, it's a fucking dream. There's something you said, and I'm curious to hear an answer from both of you, because this is something I'm learning too. It's like, I don't know if there is such a thing as like a single medium artist any longer. And I guess like in music, that's probably more true. Maybe if painters only paint and they don't draw or, use other materials. But like if you rap, you have to have a little bit of production in there. You have to have a little bit of knowledge about how to make a video. You certainly need to know something about marketing and social media. Like nobody escapes the idea of multiple hats. So I'm curious, in your experience, do you feel like, how do I want to ask this? I think something I'm trying to navigate is like, is it that I'm wearing different hats, or is it that within this one hat, I am many people? Because I feel like my experience in other jobs is I felt so limited, I felt so constricted. And within the role of artist, these things all make sense. They all feel connected. So I'm curious for you, do you feel like you're like, okay, right now I am director. I will put that down and I will pick up performer and then go do this. And then I'll put like, for me, I just feel like the hat is always on. And it's like whatever's in front of me, that's just the lens with which I'm approaching it.
I love that you're asking this question, because we just had this conversation a couple of days ago. And this is another like showing of how completely different in so many ways Rayner and I are. I am very neurodivergent. And so I am a little bit different in the way that I think and the way that I operate. The way that I think about it is as though they are different hats. But sometimes one hat is just made up of many colors, and those colors may represent different parts of my creative personality. All of the hats are creative. None of the hats are lacking in creativity. Even if as a producer, maybe that's primarily a business hat, it's still as a creative entity within that. So, you know, if I'm wearing my rapper hat, that hat still has singer inside of it. It still has dancer inside of it. It still has the colors of all the other things. Now, for my brain and my sanity, sometimes it is better for me and easier for me to take off my artist hat and put on my director hat. That does not mean that I'm not still an artist and a creative underneath, and that I'm not still thinking of making sure I'm putting the artist first and considering all the things the artist needs and all of that stuff, because you need to do that as a director. You're not a good director if you're not doing that. And my ability to direct and my ability to do all these other things is based on my understanding of what it is like to be the artist, and is influenced by that, and is influenced by all the projects I've done and all the hats that I wear. You know, everything that I do, I've learned to do because I did something else connected to it. And so, although I do see them as separate hats because it allows me to focus on what I need to focus on at any given time, I think that they are very interconnected. Rayner has a whole different POV on this.
Ish, because like right now what you said like made a lot more sense to me than when we had the conversation last time. But so I would say like every hat is made like by me, right? And so like the thread in which I use to like create it is as much my artist thread or color or thing that I try to infuse with, mainly because it's the only way I can make sure I have fun, you know? And I don't know if I always did that, but in my journey becoming the person I am today, I like made the decision that I'd never do anything I didn't want to do anymore. And you know, yeah, yeah, man. And I make sure that I am, you know, as authentic with my process as I can be. And I like to think that I'm like I come alive when I perform, right? So I'm like, all right, well, how can I come alive when I'm directing? Because I worked at a okay. I'm just getting my thoughts because I need to know like how to present this information. Okay, so I worked at a dubbing studio for like 8 years, and I learned a lot. It's where I like got to explore how to direct, how to be a voice actor and like push my limits and try different things, and you know, save the day in certain situations and deal with, you know, replacing people and voice matching and blah blah blah, right? I didn't know what I was doing when I was doing it. So, you know, when I had to really, you know, be honest with myself about it, I was like, all right, what would I need right now in order to make this happen? And so I would just act like them for a second and be like, okay, I would need this. And then I would act like I knew what I was talking about. And so I was always performing, you know? So that's kind of how I always wear it. So like, I'm always wearing my, dare I say, actor performer, like beanie or scully underneath whatever hat I'm wearing at the time. And I'll likely knock off the hat because I'd like to perform. So like, you know, the Sandi's a blessing to me in my process, because it's such a relief to get to be like, awesome, I don't have to worry about directing this, or like, awesome, I don't have to worry about the logistics of this shot. I just want to make sure I point at this point and I do this part with this part, you know. And Sandi's like, none of that's what I want to do right now. Okay, do it anyway, you know. And like, and then it either works or it doesn't. But like, I get to you know, I get to like finish my arc, you know, as a performer, right? And yeah, sure, in music, I mean, like, you know, promotion is something that I've had to learn a lot about. You know, marketing is something I'm constantly learning about. And like, that's cool. And I learn the lessons and I run with it. But at the end of the day, I think I do my best promotion when I'm having fun. I think I do my best marketing when I'm having fun. And that's always when I'm doing the principal things that I learned as an actor. Cause like, as an actor, what I learned was like, be in the moment. And again, it goes back to the thing that I really like watching, is like, just be alive, you know? And if I'm worried too much about what it is that I'm doing, it's never good enough for me. And if I'm worried too much about how it's being interpreted or received, it's never good enough for me. But it's always good enough for me whenever I'm just like jamming or having fun, or even like if I'm typing up a report for myself, I'm like, this is fun, you know, I'm having fun and I'm going to write little jokes for myself and whatever, you know, and it's, yeah, it's about making sure I'm as present as I can be, and as authentic as I can be. And I attribute that lesson specifically to my training as an actor and performer, you know, and experience on stage, and, you know, crashing and burning on stage, not crashing and burning on stage.
Hey, eating shit, I think, is like, I think that and working in the service industry for a minimum of 6 months should be required experiences for all humans. You should get on stage and bomb, and I mean fucking crickets, and just have to stand there and be like, this is the most uncomfortable I've ever been, but I am still breathing and I'm not dead. I think everyone needs to have that once. And then everyone needs to work either like a busy brunch shift or like a slammed Friday night.
On Mother's Day.
You need to drop the tray. You need to drop the tray once.
Yep. You need to drop all the glassware in the middle of the dining room and have everyone be like, that's fucking ding dong. You're like,
yeah, dude. And they're like, that's the reason why I don't have my food right now. Right? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Like, it's, man, I have such affection for both of those experiences, because I feel like they're such incredible teachers, and there are stakes, and I think you need stakes to create experiences that matter. Like, that is part and parcel to the whole game. If you got up there and you didn't give a fuck, I'm going on a tangent, but I'm going to use this opportunity to explore it with 2 seasoned performers. This is great. I'm always suspicious when someone says, like, I get up there and I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. It's like, really? Like, I feel like the way your connection to the audience is a huge part of performing.
But I think that's phrasing, though, right? I think that they're trying to say, I'm just trying to focus on the moment, you know, as opposed to if they're with me, right? I'm just gonna ride this ride, because, you know, like, if you think about it, like, I'm not technically actively thinking about whether or not they're with me. I'm just making sure that, like, I'm telling the story and that that I'm with them, you know, as opposed to, you know, whether or not they're coming along. Cause like, they won't come along if they don't want to, you know, but as long as like the door's open and like, I'm doing my job, whatever that is, you know, they'll, almost like, okay, we want to talk about serving, right? Like, when you're describing the meal, you know, and you're like, all right, so this has this and this has this. If you're just telling them the ingredients, it won't matter, right? But if you've actually had it and you dig it, you'll be like, oh man, this one's awesome. I love this. And if you get it with this sauce instead of this sauce, it's going to be fire. And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I'm going to do that, you know? And then like, you there's an exchange that happens, you know, and that's important. But you can't chase the exchange, which is why I think that some people think that it's not caring. And I think that that's a trap, right? Like, you do obviously care and have to acknowledge that you care, but you just can't worry about it, because you'll never catch it, you know? It's like catching chickens, you know? You just, yeah. Anyway, that was my 2 cents.
No,
I'd very much agree that. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd very much agree that that's just like a matter of how people need to frame things, you know? Like, you might need to frame it to yourself that way to get through it, because sometimes it can be uncomfortable. Rayner and I have done a lot of immersive theater together, and that is some of the hardest, scariest shit you have ever done in your life, because you have no control over anything, and the audience is inches from your face, and you can see them. Yeah, and they're acting crazy, and they're interjecting in your scene and talking to you while you're acting, and things happen. And you just have to be ready all the time. And because they're so close to you, and because they're sitting where you need to sit, and because they're blocking the door when you need to exit, and because of all of these things, you can feel their energy. You can feel them. Like, you can feel when they're not feeling it. You can see it because they're literally standing in the light right there that you usually stand in when you deliver these lines. You know, like, there's no escaping that. And so once you've had experiences like that, you've got to learn how to frame it in a way that's going to get you through it and work for you. And like, that's what Rayner was saying about finding a way to just be in it. Because if you're just in it, it won't matter. And then there comes a point, like he said, they're going to only come along for the ride if they want to come along for the ride. But there comes a point with most people, and this isn't always, but for me, in my experience, both as an audience member and as an actor, I and as a performer in general, I think 90% of the time, if you just stay in it and just stay committed and just keep doing it and are passionate about what you're doing and are just so in it, they can't help but to be like, all right. Even if they didn't want to, even if they like tried not to be in it or tried not to like it or just didn't want to be there or whatever they were going through that day, like, usually that commitment and that focus brings them along for the ride, whether they intended to or not. And that's all that really matters at the end of the day, is that you can walk away saying, I gave that everything. And that's where the I don't give a fuck what they think comes from, I think. You know, some people need to frame it that way a little more aggressively than others, because maybe they can't handle the vulnerability of the discomfort.
Right.
So they're like, fuck that, you know? But, you know, if you can handle the discomfort and the vulnerability that comes with things like that, then you usually have a little more playing room with which to handle that.
Yeah, the feeling deepens.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes good sense. It's so interesting. Let me not go down too many rabbit holes. Rayner, I thought it was super interesting that Sandi specifically pointed out, is like, this is, you're in a moment. Like, to what extent are you experiencing that feeling of being in a moment or in a creative wave or phase that feels super alive? And if you can you describe what that feels like when you're really fucking in it?
Yeah. So I've been doing music for like 4 years. Like, deliberately
doing
music. Like, doing it, like making it, writing the things, being like, I'm gonna actually put this out there. This has a a point. I'm not just like sitting in my car freestyling, because I've been doing that forever. It was that was like how I related to people and like earned people's affection when I was feeling insecure. When I was working at the studio, it was a really awesome experience. I'll probably say that again so that, like, if they hear this, they know. But there came a point when I felt very off, like a light, like my light was off. And I only felt like the lights flicker whenever I like created space to explore my art, right? And at first it was just writing lyrics like in my journal, and then that turned into like writing lyrics like on my lunch break, and then that turned into like actually finishing the song and then doing it and finding beats for it and blah 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 blah. And I wrote my first album, which came out May 14th, 2021, which was cool. I spent like a year before that. It was called Manifest. It was awesome. It was very much a project that I needed to do so that I could feel like I could keep creating. Like I was like, I am a rapper. I can do this. And, I appreciated it. The experience was very cool, and I'm grateful for it. And since then, I was like, okay, I'm going to, implement all the things that I learned. And then I spent a year making music, and I didn't release anything because I was like, nah, I'm not going to drop an album. I'm going to drop singles because, like, I started watching, I started, researching and learning marketing and stuff. And I was like, I have no following. I got to get one. I just kept creating. And then this year was when, or last year, towards the end of 2022 was when I was like, okay, we're going to start releasing these things. And the energy happened so much faster than I anticipated, right? Like it was like, all right, I guess I'll do a music video for this, and I guess I'll do this, and I guess I'll do an open mic here, and I guess I'll do that. And then out of nowhere, like it just kind of like started picking up momentum, and I had to like the same thing that same thing I was talking about. Like it was, I had to run with it, I had to ride it, and so I was like, oh shit, here we go, let's do it. And on the ride, the lights just turned on, and there's lots of sleepless nights. There's lots of times when I'm tired because we were up late last night doing something, and I got to be up early for like a voiceover session, and I've got to adapt some song that I'm working on or whatever, and it all feels so alive and connected, and it's something that I was very, Sandi and I talk about like our life together and moving forward and stuff. And in my taking our relationship more seriously, a couple of years ago, I was very scared that I would compromise that feeling, that feeling of being alive. 'Cause like, it's so good. It's so special, and something that my parents didn't do. I didn't have that growing up. I didn't get to witness them doing that. And it's something that like I'm addicted to, and it's why I do what I do. And it was why I gravitated toward acting at the beginning, because it was easier to be someone else's character or another character that wasn't me, but be alive in their shoes or in their skin. And now I get to do it with me, and like there's victories and there's losses, sure, but like they're all so connected and full of life. And I used to tell myself, like, before I die, I'm gonna have released an album. And then I did it, and so I was like, shit, okay, so now before I die, I'm gonna make sure I perform in front of a crowd. And then I did that, and then I was like, well, fuck, okay, so now like before I die, I'm just never gonna stop feeling this way. And that was easy to like keep chasing, and I'm still chasing that, and I probably will always be chasing that. And now I do that with like my friends, and it's just bleeding out into everything else I do. So it's like if I had to describe the feeling, it's like you got a light bulb and you're holding it, and it's turned on, but like they explain to you, like, okay, while you're holding this light bulb, as long as you're plugged into this thing, it'll always turn on. And then somewhere along the line, you're like, I wonder what'll happen if I just unplug it. And then like you look and the light bulb's still on, and you're like, oh shit. And then it turns off, and you're like, wait, no, I did that though. I did that. And so like, and then you practice turning it on without the plug, and you do. And that's where I'm at. I'm like just chasing the things that let me turn on the light bulb. And it feels like magic, it feels like magic. And that's that. I'm big into anime. I'm big into cartoons. I was an only child, so like I'm heavy into the fantasy, and I always wanted to like get Harry Pottered, right? Like have them show up and be like, "You're a wizard, Rayner." Not that I'm a big fan of the whole thing that's happening right now with that, but just that energy of like getting told that you're Goku. And yeah, man. So the feeling of I realized I'm my own hero, and I'm writing the story as I go.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you are.
I mean, I think that like that is such the epitome of the experience, Sandi, that you alluded to earlier, which is that in a wonderful way, there's a much larger narrative right now about what it means to care for your inner child or to parent your inner child, right? We're all figuring out. It's like mom and dad did or whatever your permutation of parental figures was in your life, did the absolute best that they could. They got some shit right. They got some shit wrong. Everyone got dealt a different hand. But at some point as an adult, you become responsible for caring for that smaller version of you that still lives within. And I think what's funny, like it's a weird crucible to go through. Your first attempts, for me at least, is like I tried to parent myself like my parents had parented me. I was like, oh, I'll just fucking step into those shoes. And you're like, no, that's not it. Like that didn't work. So like, no,
that shouldn't work. Yeah,
no, skip. Let's not do that. But it's at some point you realize like it's an imperfect analogy, but like if your inner child looks at current you and is like, I get to be that, like really, really deeply feel like joy and like the impossibility of like, no, hold on. Like what fucking magic carpet ride did I go on where that's actually my life in the future and I get to be like that and I get to feel like that. Like when you start stepping into that dynamic and as an adult, you'd be like, yeah, you can come. You get to be a part, like you get to be on this team, on this ride right fucking now. Like, ooh, that's when healing happens and shit gets really, really fun.
Yes, I am genuinely choked up right now because you are describing my daily life.
That's a dream. The like the other thing you described, Rayner, that like I think I've played with in different contexts is like it's some version of living death, and it's that as you grow up, you have stories about what is either possible or not possible or right or not right. And you sort of live within these structures. And part of it is ego-based. Part of it is societal. You know, part of it is your nervous system. Like, please don't fucking die. Like, we need you to keep being on Earth. But at some point, it's sort of like, you know, you unclip and you're like, I should die. That like right now, I should be dead. Based on the entire way that I lived my life up to this point, and you stick like half a toe in, you're like, ooh, hold on. No, okay, we're still good. Like half a foot, maybe. And like eventually, like you fucking dive in and you're like, oh, like I can do whatever I want. Like there's magic to be had here. That's like, it's God, what a beautiful thing. Was there a moment that catalyzed that? Was there, and for both of you, I'd be curious because it sounds like you're both kind of in maybe not exactly the same, but certainly parallel journeys of discovering your own awesomeness, your like the extent to which you truly love being yourself.
Well, so I actually first want to say when I saw that moment happen for Rayner, because it correlates back to the story that he just told. So about a year and a half ago, he made the decision to work for himself 100%. And that is when he was like, I'm really going to focus only on what I want to do with my life. And so I can't even say that his voice acting stuff like changed that much, only because he was already going so hard in that arena for so long. But immediately the shift that happened in him as an artist, as a rapper, as a musician, just that snowball effect that he just started going, and it literally hasn't stopped since then. And it's been such a joy for me because we moved in together shortly after that. And I've gotten to witness this magical being on this snowball. Like, yeah. And it is truly amazing because just in, what was it, October, babe?
October.
That the first song came out from
October 20th.
I thought you meant
when I
the
quit.
first single came out. Oh no, the first single came out in 2022 that he started writing the year prior, and so we have a lot of music, you know, lined up in the arsenal, ready. You know, a lot of ammunition. So up until that point, it was a year of work that was happening that was pretty much unseen by everyone except for the inner circle. And I feel so lucky to be one of those people, because watching him just rev up as an artist, as a rapper, as a musician has been amazing. And now we're in this place where back in October, we started unleashing that to the world. And now the world is joining this journey that we've been on for all this time. And I'm like, yes, y'all see what's going on in here. Because Like, it's been an amazing, amazing journey. Every new song is my new favorite song. Like every new video is my new favorite video. Like everything, you know, it's so exciting. It's such an amazing process to be a part of and bear witness to, and get to just, this person is a light to the world as a human, but also as an artist, having the ability to shine that light in a much broader radius. It's just incredible.
We're gonna loop-de-loop here. So now, Sandi, I still want to hear your answer to what your moment was where it felt like that happened for you.
I got to percolate. Let's let Rayner go while I think on it.
So then my question to you, Rayner, is like, I mean, I saw a lot of gesticulation and head nodding. It sounds like that was resonant, that moment of like, I'm going into business for myself, to promote myself, to really do this. Was that pivotal moment? Was that your experience, or was that part of it and there's like a comma plus section?
Sandi describes it very cool, very, very well. You know, I feel like, you know, like an action movie. For me, it was, so like I had to turn my back on like safety,
Yeah.
you know, which was hard at the time. And, I like had a heart to heart with myself, and it was specifically what you were just talking about parenting your inner child. And I was like, well, what do you want to do, little guy, little G, you know? And I was like, I want to do this. And I was like, well, then fuck it, man, then we got to do it. And so I did it. I pulled the trigger on that. And yeah, it was that. I put myself in a position where it was like, well, now it's you, man. And so like, now we rely on you. And so like, you know, how do we make this work? How do we make the boat float? And I've been lucky and blessed that, you know, momentum creates more momentum. And like when one door closes, another one opens. And like, you know, I keep learning, and I'm humbled by all of the lessons and the mistakes and the victories. And yeah, I got to taste my power, man, which was awesome. You know, I was like, I'm fucking dope, man. Like as a being, you know, like we get to do stuff, you know, and like you grow up thinking like, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to work and I'm going to do this. And, you know, when I was a kid, I was like, I'm going to be famous and I'm going to, you know, and like, and then that changes because it's like, well, what makes me happy? And then like, I just started chasing like how to make me happy. And I got better at making me happy. And when I stopped, like I couldn't tell you exactly like what day it was, but it was a couple like weeks after where like I wasn't waking up thinking I had to go to work. You know, I wasn't waking up thinking, you know, like just that I don't want to say fear, but like that anxiety, that like, okay, you know, like I just woke up and was like,
I do not miss that guy.
Nah, not even that. I just opened. Oh, heard. Yeah. I don't miss him either.
Thanks.
I don't miss him either. But I opened my eyes and was like, I just heard lyrics, right? And I was like, I'm gonna go write those. And so like I just did that, and like, or like I opened my eyes and I was like, what do I have to do today? I get to be a character in some fucking audiobook. I'm gonna go fucking do that. And like I would do it. And I remember spending like, there was a week, man, where I was really lucky. I did a lead character in an audiobook for graphic audio, and it was like 5 days of like 8-hour shifts, and it was wild, and I was tired and I was sweating and I smelled, but fuck was it awesome. And like if I go back and listen to it, I have notes for myself as a performer. I'm like, I could have done that better, and I could have done that better. But the feeling, man, was that might have been one of the true moments where I was like, what have I been waiting for? You know, like, why did I wait so long to like risk it? And yeah, I have answers for that, right? You know, I'm glad I'm glad I'm where I'm at, and I'm glad the trajectory was what it was. But it was a few weeks or maybe a month after not being at the place where I just woke up and I was like, oh yeah, I have control over my life, over how I want to live. And that feeling has gotten refined, and I've gotten, you know, better at it and deeper at it. But that was like the beginning, you know, the start of that book or that chapter or whatever, however you want to think about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sandi, still percolating?
Thanks.
Well, so the more I think about it, the more I think that moment is probably a series of shifts in a lot of people's lives, you know? Sometimes that moment is one big thing, one big revelation or life change or realization. And that's perfectly fair and reasonable if you have that. But there were probably also smaller ones too along the way. And so that's, I think, for me, what my journey has been like, because I I had not a great situation growing up, and going off on my own into the world. I went off on my own as a very young person, as a teenager, and and absolutely was not ready for the world. So I did not ever have that comfort that I had to let go of. I was always in a place of discomfort. And so for me, it was small shifts of letting myself live the life I wanted to live, even if I might be homeless, because I have been a few times, you know, like, and that is a process that I don't wish on anyone, just for logistical human reasons. But at the same time, those things very much made me who I am. I had to go through a lot of hard things, and I had to fight through them. And it touched me so much earlier when you were talking about like having to like stay alive, because mental health is a really big thing for me that I've struggled with throughout my life, to such a severe degree that I have struggled throughout my life with suicidal thoughts and things like that. And so when you're in that place, you really and truly have to stay alive and have to fight against that. And so it is a series of small moments sometimes that take you to the next thing. And so it's funny because when you think that it's going to be a big moment, sometimes it's not. So I'm from the North, I'm from the Northeast, and this summer we had been preparing to make the move back to my home, so that I could be in New York, where I really have been feeling called to go back to for over 5 years. And I went up there and it did absolutely not go as planned. It was a complete disaster. And I came back to Florida feeling absolutely gutted, like a complete failure, like I was never gonna like be able to do anything with my life because I couldn't make this one thing happen the way that I thought it was gonna happen, or how thought it was gonna happen, or when I thought it was gonna happen. And to me, that was gonna be the big moment. And like I'm looking back now, and when I tell you that it took me 6 months to have this realization, I really mean it. You can ask Rayner. It's not been an easy 6 months for me. But it literally took me 6 months to wrap my brain around the fact that when I left Florida to go to New York, I gave up a lot of things that were really important to me. And I wouldn't have given up had I not thought I was going to New York. And when I came back, and I didn't have them anymore. It was a terrifying experience. And it took me this long to realize that without all of those things, I am living the life I have been asking the universe for such a long time. I am working for myself. I am working from home 90% of the time with my best friend and partner who I love. We have a business together, making his music and making his art. He is highly involved in my work, in the art that I make. We have a partnership that I cannot replace with anything in the world. I only take gigs and jobs that I want to do. I'm no longer doing anything that I don't want to do, that stresses me the F out, that surrounds me with people who don't see me, who don't care about me, who don't support me, who don't love me, who don't want what's best for me. I can stay out of all those situations because I don't have to be in them anymore. And it took me this long to get to that place. So sometimes you think it's going to be big, and sometimes it's not. And then maybe sometimes it's the opposite thing of what you thought that is actually the thing. And so for me right now, I guess the answer to your question is it's now. It's now when I'm having the realization. It's now when I'm grabbing a hold of those reins. It's now when I'm grateful for what could have been and wasn't great. And I'm grateful for what I can now make great because it's all up to me. I declare it. It's now.
It's right fucking now.
Why shouldn't it be?
No, I believe me. You are welcome to step into that feeling and that emotion in that moment anytime you.
I encourage everyone to step into that feeling and that moment.
Amen. Well, it's like there's this is a funny story. There's you have to learn that it's not about getting it right. It's about taking the chance. And the outcome of whatever chance you took will bring you closer to what you need, either because it is actually closer or because you're like, ooh, fuck, like, nope, that wasn't it. That was a miss. I went through this like interesting phase over the summer where like my daughter painted my nails and I was like, ooh, like I kind of like how that feels. That's kind of nice. And to make a long story short, at some point, like inner wisdom was like, oh, you should wear a dress. And I was like, are you sure? Like that's not been on the table before. Like we've never thought about that. And I was like, yeah, no, for sure. You should get a dress. And I was like, okay. So like I ordered one on Amazon and then I turned it into this big thing. And I was like, I'm going to go to a fucking party in a dress. Like, God damn it. Like I'm going to live my truth and listen to wisdom and I'm going to do it. And then I did it and I went and I was like, hey, I forgot that I fucking don't like parties for the most part because I'm generally introverted. Love being on stage, love having a mic and being center of attention, but at a party, not my favorite. And like in retrospect, the dress I chose, like not wise for a party for a variety of reasons. And I went home and I was like, I was confused and I was mad. And I was like, I thought I was giving myself so much credit for listening to this wisdom and it didn't fucking work. And I'm so upset. And I got the joke of like, okay, it's like it's a swing and a miss. Like you had the intuition, you followed it, you gave it a shot. And like, that wasn't exactly it, but that did wormhole me into a larger awareness of like, I carry a lot of masculine stereotypes as we tend to do. I don't need them. They don't serve me. Like if I actually allow more of my feminine energy to be present in my art, in my life, in my relationships, like I am so much fucking happier because I don't like playing the role of traditional guy most of the time. So like I got there, I had to go through a frankly pretty fucking embarrassing experience of like really genuinely believing like this is going to change my life. Being like, no, I was just awkward as shit. Like that's pretty much all that was. But like didn't die. Got the lesson.
Yeah, you were fine.
Continued forward. Like that's such a big part of it. And it's Sandy. It sounds like similar for New York. It's like, it's it's this pilgrimage, it's this return home. It's a Mecca. Like, I have a connection to New York too. It's where my family lives. Like, and I will find myself once a week being like, fuck, maybe I should be in New York. I could be on more open mics. I could meet more people. I could network, like blah, 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 blah. And then you had the courage to go and show up and to realize like, oh, like, no, this ain't it. Not right now. Doesn't mean never. Doesn't mean it's not
exactly
a thing. But for right now, this ain't it. And that's okay. Fully allowed.
A quote comes to mind. You don't become grounded by controlling stability. You become grounded by giving into instability. And that's that one.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
I also really strongly identify with what you said about playing the role of the man. Because I just started to understand myself about 2 years ago and recognize that I'm non-binary, that I don't identify as a woman. And that I had very much throughout my life been playing this like very forced role of like a woman, and like so much so that like I was a music video dancer and like all these things that are like highly sexualized female situations, and it was just because that one was how everyone else wanted to view me and how everyone else wanted to frame me. And so I was like, well, I guess if that's what everyone else says, then I guess that's what I am, and just like very much was like, all right, well, if this works, I'll just do this, and just like went along with it, and just constantly had this discomfort within myself and this questioning of like, but should I have been born a man? Is this even like right? Like, am I like, what's wrong with me? And like, why do I have these thoughts? Like, normal people don't have these thoughts, like all these things. And, obviously I awakened to a much broader understanding of what gender really is, and that gender is not your sexual organs and all of these things, but, that we all have masculinity and femininity within us. Some people identify to that. Some people don't. Some people are completely genderless, and for me, it's been a huge awakening and a huge coming into myself to allow myself to live in the world in the way that I had been fighting from within for 30 some odd years up until that point. And so I applaud you. I'm so thrilled for you that you like were willing to tap into those things that are absolutely against the way that society views what a man should be and what a woman should be. Because who the fuck are they to decide? Like, fuck yeah, your painted nails look dope. And you know what? Maybe the dress wasn't the best party choice, but you know what? I bet you looked super dope in it anyway. So like it's nobody else's say. So like, I very much applaud you for going with that.
Well, I appreciate that very, very much. And it spurs a question, actually. So there's an obvious external answer, which is, when you think about your art, you are probably deflecting away from roles that might present you in a hyper traditional feminine role or an overly sexualized role. But I'm curious, like from an internal perspective, when you are creating art now, do you feel like this awakening around gender has shifted how you perform or what you lean toward or find inclination toward in your performances?
So actually, no. And also no to the first thing that you said about not wanting to do hyper feminine or hypersexualized roles, because I have always been inside exactly who I am now. I just didn't know how to authentically present that to the world. And I was fighting my internal experience with how I thought that the world wanted or required me to present. But every character that I play comes from a part of me. There is no character that I have ever personally played that has nothing of me inside of it. So like one of the most recent roles that I played, and I only say the most recent only because the pandemic sort of interrupted live theater for a while, but was a Playboy bunny in which I was in an immersive setting. It was taking place in a motel, and the audience would enter a motel room in which I was under the covers with someone and I was naked. And it was a highly sexualized role. I would grab the blanket and I would run into the bathroom because we were having a fight in the scene. And I would grab the blanket and cover myself and run into the bathroom. And I would, in the bathroom, get dressed because I, in the scene, no longer wanted this person to see my body. But I would get dressed in my Playboy bunny costume. And then I would come out and my partner would have to zip me up into that because it was a costume I could not physically put on by myself. And there were times that he didn't quite get the zipper and, it popped down and the audience really got what they paid for those nights. That is for absolute sure. But like, this is the body that I'm in, and I am sexual, and I am sexual in my body. And I love my body and I love myself. And none of playing a character or a role that is in a body makes me identify with it less. It has absolutely, my understanding of gender has absolutely changed the way that I create. So when I'm writing, particularly right now I'm working on a rap adaptation of a Shakespeare show. And I have decided to completely change genders for some of the characters, make some of the characters LGBTQ. I have made some of the characters I wouldn't even call it gender bending because they are playing that role authentically as a male or a female in a role that would have typically been played by someone of the opposite sex. I have characters that are clearly non-binary when that is not something that existed within Shakespeare. And so it definitely has changed the way that I create because I now understand how important it is for people to see themselves. Representation matters. People of color need to see themselves represented in the media. LGBTQ people need to see themselves represented in the media. People with disabilities need to see themselves represented in the media. We need to be included. We meaning anyone who has been historically marginalized. We need to be included. We need to be counted. And we need to have the people who are making things make sure that we show up and are visible and are not just some token character.
Well said.
Fuck
Yeah, well said.
Thanks.
And I appreciate your willingness to correct me earlier because that's how we learn. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Oh, I mean, it was a fair assumption to be made. And I believe that for some trans identifying people, that's absolutely true. I have friends who consider themselves, non-binary, but would never ever play a woman again or never ever play a man again. And that is completely reasonable and fair. It is completely an individual experience. I don't think that learning that I am non-binary takes away from my femininity. It just allows me to not be limited and defined solely by that. Not that I think any woman who identifies as a woman should be, unless that is what she desires. But that being said, that is not true for me. And so, I just think that it's fair for people and important for people to understand that this is much more, there's a lot more room for personal experience that, we can just allow people to have their experience. And like, that's so interesting to me. It's just more diversity. It's more like interesting. It makes the world more interesting. So
Yes. Yes. To all of the above. I want to switch gears, and I also want to be respectful of your time because we've already gone over an hour, but I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm also interviewing two people, so it's going to run a little longer. That kind of makes sense. Yeah. I want to dive into sort of the dynamic that is like the romantic artistic connection collective that you two exist within. And it sounds like the current dynamic is that, Sandi, you are a manager and video director and supporter of Rayner's art. And Rayner, you are playing artist in this moment. Does that, well, actually, no, that's not true, because it sounds like there's mutual support from Rayner to you, Sandi, for your art. And so like, maybe at least like what I'm seeing more visibly on Instagram, etc., is Rayner songs and Sandi's support of it, but that probably doesn't give the entire context of the relationship. So maybe I should stop talking and you can tell me what it looks and feels like to be in this sort of romantic / artistic and also professional, right? Because you share a business, so that is yet another arc or thread within the container.
Well, I definitely think there's a give and take to it, and we both mutually support each other's art. But there are times when, you know, one person might need to press forward on something in particular, and you know, and that means if you don't have anything particularly pressing at that time and you can be that support, that's great. And if you do, then maybe you're just on parallel paths pressing forward on your two individual things separately with still mutual support, but probably less hands-on support, you know. And then maybe sometimes the other person is really leaning into something, and you know, we're just in a moment where Rayner's work that is being released to the public is the primary focus. My work is not public right now. My work is still in the developmental process. I'm where Rayner was a year ago in his process, you know? So like, we're just in two different places in our process. So I am a support to him in his process right now, while my stuff is still simmering.
Well, and it's a different kind of support, right? Because like I too had my year of like being alone in front of a computer screen, being like, "Am I fucking insane?" Like I might be, I might be completely insane. And so anyway, just want to honor and acknowledge that like the way you might be feeding each other, there's relationship to it, but it's different because where you are creatively is in different spaces and in different moments. But anyway, let me get out of the way again. Rayner, your thoughts?
No, please. So I guess one of the things that I cherish the most about our relationship, Sandi, is the accountability for like growth, you know, and to honor the journey, you know, and to be better people, you know. So, you know, sometimes that's like calling you on some shit. Sometimes that's you know, booking out some time to help record a demo, you know. Sometimes that looks like you know, Sandi's gonna hold a reflector because we don't have anyone to do that, and there's no space for direction right now. We just need this light, you know, right now. And then there's that can also look like, okay, you know, no, we're gonna sit and we're gonna, you know, get the shot list figured out before we go shoot, you know. I'm really grateful that the space is always safe, and that, you know, we've learned how to see each other and talk to each other, and like I feel like I'm just catching up to Sandi in that regard, you know, like
Zooming past me right now, I think.
Well, I've had to work against a lot of like digging wise, like into like a lot of trauma and a lot of like misconceptions about myself, and give myself more credit where I hadn't, and accepting more elements and aspects and colors of myself. um and Sandi, you know especially towards the beginning of our relationship, really was patient and like held space for me to do so, and that allowed me to get to where I'm at, and allowed them to witness me get to where I'm at, uh which I think then translates to like, okay, now it's my turn. And so now, I think I'm currently in a space where I'm holding space for Sandi to lean on me in a sense, in the way that I was leaning on them, and artistically, professionally, and romantically as well. um so I guess I kind of lost track of the answer, but again, it goes back to like accountability in all sense of our relationship. I think we try to be honest in our communication, direct in our communication, but like very compassionate in our listening, um, and try to honor the need, like what our needs are, because like I don't have the same needs as Sandi, and Sandi doesn't have the same needs as I do. And learning how to hear it and respect it and give it the value, remind, like for me, because I can only speak for myself on this one, but like telling myself like, all right, bro, like this is incredibly important for this person. So like, treat it as if it's that thing that's important for you. And that in and of itself unlocked like everything. And I was like, oh, this is actually not that hard. And yeah, and it really helped the relationship, I think, level up. And once we leveled up, it kind of became easier to do more things with each other, because when the moments get tense, or when we don't agree about something, or when we have ideas about where we're supposed to go, that accountability now is like, I trust and expect you to trust me, like, and it's a really nice space to create in, and love in, and coexist in. Yeah, that's yeah, sorry.
No, that is a beautiful answer. A curiosity I can feel forming in my mind is like, um, you're both involved in a lot of heavy lifting. Like artistic endeavors are not light. Like dealing with trauma is not light. Like relationship is not necessarily light. So like how do you create levity within a container where like you are doing so much work and so much heavy lifting?
To be fair, I think that was the easy part. Rayner and I, okay, actually I should Rayner was always more in touch with his child than I was. And so in our relationship, when we first started dating, he opened something for me that that allowed me to feel safe in my childlike ways. And I don't mean immature ways. I mean in my excitement, in my wonder, in my parts where the little kid in you is like, yay! That. He really started that process of opening that door for me, because I think in that particular way, because of my personal life trajectory, I think I was very guarded and defensive to allowing that. And the only place I could allow that was, as Rayner said earlier, in someone else's skin acting on stage. And so Rayner coming into my life allowed for that to happen. And so that immediately brought a lot of safety in levity, in childlike moments, in silliness, and with the trust and safety being built every day. And with the time that it took to get to a place where we were both actively doing the work of healing the things that we needed to heal, to be the person that we know we are inside, but don't always act like in the world because of the way we grew up, our traumas, the way society expects us to be, the way, you know, the neurotypical way of thinking where there's always something passive aggressive being said underneath what you're saying. And, you know, the ability to trust and to honor who the other person is, even when you don't understand what's happening, or even when something feels wrong or bad, the ability to be vulnerable, be present, hold space, and be curious. And that allows you to learn. And usually what you learn is you were misunderstanding, or that the reason they said that was because of this, which actually makes sense because of that, or whatever the case is. And so it just, doing your own work builds trust upon trust in a relationship. And then when you add that to the ability to play, it really just does create such a safe space. And so we're both big fans of therapy, and doing that work and continuing to do the different practices aside from therapy that help a person heal and be present with themselves and be vulnerable and communicate well, and all of those things that it takes to be in a healthy relationship. Those are what have allowed us to do the work that we're doing together creatively. Because if we had tried to do together what we're doing now 3 years ago, I mean, we've been together for 4 years. In about 6 weeks, it'll be 4 years. So we've been together for a long time. And at no point prior to like where we are now in the timeline, where we have been for the last, few months that we've been doing this, at no point earlier in the timeline would this have been successful. Working together as creatives, but also in these high pressure situations like recording videos, being out in the public, being in a venue, having time limits, having sound coming at you, having things go wrong, having people walking into the shot, having everything that could go wrong happen, or everything that could make you butt heads happen, or even just, like, well, I want it to be this way. Well, I want it to be this way. Like if you don't have a base of trust and support and love and all of those things that come from doing the work, you're not going to do that well. Like it's just going to be a miserable experience. And so like we've just sort of culminated to this place, both individually, that has gotten us to where we are in our relationship, that allows us to do what we're doing right now professionally. And so it's been hard for Rayner in some ways to just be the artist and to let go of the control, because Rayner has very, very high standards for everything. And Rayner expects a lot from himself. And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, especially when you have, you're producing everything yourself, and you have a small budget, and you have a limited time, and you have all of these things that are pieces that are moving around you. And to be able and willing even, let alone able, but to even be willing to then relinquish that control and give it to someone else, it's extremely freeing, but it's also scary as shit. I am a perfectionist like a mofo, and Rayner will tell you I do not like to let go of control of things. So I know how hard it is for him to be able to do that. But at the same time, I've watched him relish it. Like I've watched him being able to like lean into that and be like, I don't have to worry about nothing, and like, that's the best thing, The hardest part is getting everyone else to come on board with that. Like, sending out the group text to the friends. Hey, you're scheduled to be here. Don't call Rayner. Call me. Please don't tell Rayner you're going to be late. Don't tell him. tell me, like that's the hardest part, is wrangling the cats, but he's really come into such confidence with it. It's impressive.
Thanks.
It's beautiful to watch your dynamic.
Thanks.
Got me bashful.
I like soak it in, like receive love, because it's not about having answers, right? Like the relationship is not great because you're like, oh, this is exactly how we deal with everything. It's again, like it's creating a context in which like there is flexibility, there is dynamic, there is movement. And so in the case of spillage or in the case of like unexpected chaos, like the container can move, the container can adapt. And that is like, that takes real fucking work.
It does.
That takes real work. And
ongoing work too, like you don't just reach the marker and you're like, oh, I'm done. Like, no.
And there's the internal work, right? Because I think so much of being able to be in that container is you have to be good with your own shit. And that is that is 1/2, third, whatever the fuck it is. But that's a piece of it that you're constantly working on. And whether that's parenting the inner child, staying grounded, staying present, being connected to what actually feels right versus what you could be doing. But then the container itself is like a third entity that needs its own love and attention and work and dynamic. And so I honor and I celebrate that both of you have been clearly doing the work. It's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Thank you, kind sir.
The willingness to do the work, that's the thing, It helps with the moments of levity. It helps with everything. Cause like you're saying, it shifts, sometimes we need to not work, and go on a date, sometimes we need to, go throw the football outside.
Yes.
Right. Or,
like we've done that plenty of times,
We're due for that, actually.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we should do that soon. Yeah. But the willingness to show up, because like you said, you don't always have the answers. You don't always know what the problem is, but just the like, it's cool, this is safe, and like, that garners more safety and more faith in the space. So I think it's important to do the work, but it's also important to like talk about that you're trying to, that you want to, that it's important to you. I've had friendships where the work isn't willing to be done, and unfortunately or fortunately, those people aren't in my life anymore, and it's now something that I look for in all relationships and things that I do, is just the willingness to do the work, because that, if there's ever a disagreement with anything or a misunderstanding, the collective idea that like, but we want, us to be okay,
right,
is important.
I think, it's also, it feels important to acknowledge that like, yes, like one person doing work and one person not creates a pretty natural divergence. Two people doing the work can also diverge. Because again, it's formation of self. Like for both of you, it sounds like as you step into this individuation of your true self and your true identity, you are finding connection and connectivity in those new identities, which is beautiful and is awesome. It is also possible for two people to step into that individuation and be like, ooh, nah, right. Like either like, it was an insecure attachment, or there were some coping mechanisms that were kind of keeping the ship. And then once you start to heal those, you're like, ooh, fuck, like this ain't it. And like, it's a funny thing to navigate, because you're like, nothing is wrong. Right. Like no one did anything wrong.
Yeah.
Nothing broke. Like we're not fighting. Yep. This isn't a big explosive. It's just sort of like this, it's almost like a disentangling, and all of a sudden the threads hang alone. And you're like, oh,
yeah, it's like, I got to make a left, you got to make a right.
Yeah. And I think we've all had those relationships, right? Where like, I know Rayner has, I have, I don't want to assume that you have, but that just happens. Sometimes it's romantic. Sometimes it's a friendship where you're just like, not really about this anymore. And it's not It's not personal.
Yeah,
You know,
we've changed.
it's just like who I am now doesn't align with who you are or where you're going. And like, that's okay. Like, I can still love you from over there, you know?
From over there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you?
yeah.
You look great.
That also
Yeah.
applies to familial relationships as well.
Hey,
From
that's
way the fuck over there.
a whole other podcast about the work and the family. That's a different topic. Before we get out of here, so what comes next? What project can we expect? What can we look for? What are you excited about? Like, give all the juicy goss, please, and thank you.
Well, so Sandi and I are working very hard on presenting all my music to the world. So I'm dropping a song every month, but the next song that's coming out is called I Am. That comes out January 20th. So in 10 days. And Sandi and I finished working on the edit list last night. So that'll be ready. The music video is really cool. And we're already talking about the next music video, which is for a song. Can I tell them the name?
Yeah.
I can say the name, right?
Yeah.
It's called The Best Side. And Sandi's in that one, actually.
I'm actually featured on that one.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
musically featured,
So,
not just present.
musically
Cool,
featured,
cool.
Yeah. And yeah, man, and I'm very excited. That's what we're doing as far as the music. Sandi, I don't know if you can talk about what's coming for you. But
nothing's coming for me that's public yet, so I don't really have anything to share, but I'll just say that, yeah, we're super excited. I Am releases January 20th. The Best Side releases. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say that.
The Best Side drops on Valentine's Day. What?
Yeah.
So that's kind of cute or whatever.
It's super cute.
But yeah, it's a really exciting time. We're just full steam ahead on Rayner's art, his releases, his songs, his music videos, and as soon as I have something that I'm ready to share with the world, I shall let you know.
I love it. Well, even when that happens, not if, when that
That's
happens.
just a when, not an if.
That's a when. I caught myself. I was like, it's not an if.
Yeah.
You got it. 100% a when.
You got it.
When you are ready to present your beautiful art to the world, we can hop back on and we can talk all about what happened between now and then. It'll be great. Rayner, Sandi, thank you
awesome.
so much for sharing your time, your attention, your answers, your thoughts with me. It's such a blessing. And it was a joy. We were discussing before we started that we've never actually met in person, any of the three of us. Like we have many people through whom we are connected, which is really fun. But this was a first kind of like true meeting of the minds. And it was an absolute joy. So thank you both. I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having us and for sharing, about your story and stuff with us as well. It's been awesome to get to know you, and we'll definitely have to do this again.
For sure. Or we'll get together in person, God forbid, or God willing.
Man.
Let's do it.
We'll make something happen. All right.
Well, listen, we have a cipher that's owed, so we got to make that happen.
That is very true. We definitely have to hop in a cipher. That would be fun. We are like, not going to put us on the spot right now. We will do one for a podcast at some point and put it out. We'll get
Let's
there.
do it.
That'll be dope.
Sure.
All right, y'all. We'll see y'all later.
Big love, brother.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Stage Dive, and I hope that you enjoyed it. New episodes drop each and every Wednesday. You can find highlights and clips of these conversations on TikTok and Instagram using the handle @StageDivePodcast. If you have any questions for us, want to be featured on the show, or have anything else to send, you can always email us at stagedivepodcast@gmail.com. This is Jack Dawkins, and no matter how you're performing in the world today, I want you to know that you are loved. Take care.